Unknown Hexon says, what are you going to play? Okay. I decided tonight to try something a little bit different. Um, Basically, I thought it would be a good idea that maybe sometimes I would do a stream where I talk to the chat instead of playing a game. I'm going to say right off the bat, that doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to do streams where I'm playing games. I am. But I thought I'd try something different because there's a lot of people in the chat room a lot of times that really want me to address the chat. And sometimes when people come into the chat room, they might see me playing Three Stooges on NES or something, and maybe they're not interested in that game. So they're hoping that I respond to something or play a different game or something. So I'm just trying out something different here. The idea of this is we're doing a video game Q&A type of thing. And what I thought was, I'll just tell you what the idea is. Basically, you guys, this is going to be interactive with you guys. I am going to have you guys in the chat ask me questions related to video games. I think that if we get a good topic going, maybe let's say somebody asks me a question about The Legend of Zelda, let's say, or somebody asks me a question about Doom, and we get a good conversation going, maybe I could, let's say somebody asked me about the monsters in Doom, let's say, and we went back and forth about that, then I could have a clip, sort of almost like a podcast of a topic. Like for a few minutes, we'll talk about some of the monsters from Doom, and maybe we can have a good conversation about that. So that's my idea, to be able to talk to you guys and have a little bit more interactivity. Mr. Russell says, can you beat Jekyll and Hyde blindfolded? No, absolutely not. Very, very difficult game. I wish I could. But I will say, James and I did play it with the Power Glove, and it might actually be, I mean, it would be really fucking hard, like insanely hard, but it might be possible to do it with the Power Glove, and I might try it one day, we'll say. Maybe. At least I felt like when we did that with the Power Glove, I could have gotten further than we did. We just gave up because it was like torturous, but I feel like it would take like a long time, but I think it could be done. Yosh Do says, this is a good question. He says, which console do you think has the best library post sprite-based consoles? Handhelds included, he says. Whew, that is quite the question. I would say the one that sprung into my mind, and like right off the bat, was PlayStation 2. Because PlayStation 2 had a lot of games, and it also had a lot of really good games. I can't think of anything. Maybe 360, but Dreamcast had a lot of great games. But probably not as many. I don't think the library of games was as big. But I will say one thing: Dreamcast there were so many great games on Dreamcast that I might have to go Dreamcast. So one of those, PS2 or Dreamcast, I think probably had the biggest library of good games post 8-bit. Let me know, chat, if I'm forgetting anything. I feel like I probably am, but I'm gonna go either Dreamcast or PS2. LNG. Oh, for a second I thought that said LJN. LNG NASCAR Freak 83 says, besides beating Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde for NES, what was your biggest video game achievement? Honestly, the one that's coming to the top of my head at the moment is beating Super Monkey Ball, the first game, all the way through. Because the way that game is, it's divided into 3 sections. You have the beginner mode, which is not that hard. You have the advanced mode, and then you have the hard mode, and then the master. And getting all the way through that is very difficult because you have to have it's been a very long time since I played, but you have to have enough bananas and enough continues, and basically you can't die very, very many times. You only get a couple deaths, and collecting the bananas actually becomes very, very important to to the game because you need to have enough lives to be able to make it through. And what's crazy is, let's say I think it was on the beginner, if you can make it through the first 10, I think it is, without dying, then there's like extra stages, and I think you got to beat those too. I'm going off of old memory here. That might not be true, but anyway. And then you get to advanced, and the same thing. You got to get all the way through advanced, and I think there's 30 of those, and then I think there's 50 of the hard, and making it all the way through the hard, and then it opens up, it unlocks the master mode, and beating the master mode of Super Monkey Ball for GameCube, which was one of the launch titles for the system, and it's I always felt like Super Monkey Ball was a game that, you know, a lot of people didn't really seem to care for it, but I really loved that game, and it's super skill based. It's a lot like Marble Madness, and I honestly think that one of my best video game achievements was to be able to go through all those hard modes, make it to master mode, and beat all those master levels, and to be able to beat the game completely. I remember, I think it was the third master level was like one of the hardest like things ever. I wish I could like show footage of it right now in the video, but yeah, beating that, and when the second one came out, that game was awesome too, and I also beat that one. I remember the end stage of that game was actually a Nintendo GameCube that spins around, and then you have to, like, you know, get to the goal on the other side. And I really, really loved the main mode of Super Monkey Ball. That game also had great mini games and stuff. The bowling was awesome. The monkey target was awesome. I think that's a very underrated game that nobody seems to talk about. We did a video, a James and Mike video, where we played the boxing mode, and that's like a goofy, fun thing to do with friends. But really, that game, the main game in that game, is awesome. I love Super Monkey Ball. So yeah, beating the master levels in Super Monkey Ball, that is one of my best video game achievements, I would say. Have I ever played Dragons Lair? Says, oh, what a name. Me, Hirus, Gamer 22. I have played Dragons Lair. I used to play Dragons Lair in the arcade. Long time ago, and I remember that being, back when it was originally in the arcade, and I remember that being such a different experience than playing, like, you play Pac-Man and Centipede and all those type of games, but it was like a cartoon. I actually have a Dragons Lair poster on my wall right there, and it was such a different game in that it was animated. It looked like a cartoon, and the way you could choose what you were going to do, it was totally different than the other games in the arcade. And I remember that it was just a stunning machine and game to look at. But of course, I also played the Dragons Lair NES game, and I don't know if that's what you were talking about. I have a feeling you might have been talking about the NES game there. The NES game is nothing like the arcade game. It's a horrible game. That was a game that was an AVGN episode, and so a lot of people remember it now as the terrible game that it is. And it's a game that requires a lot of memory. You have to know exactly what you're doing through a ton of trial and error. But I think that the game is bad. Well, I mean, you could watch the AVGN video for a good explanation of it, but I don't think it's a good trial and error game. Like, some of the things you have to do are really ridiculous, and I remember the controls are not very good. So that was a terrible game. But the original arcade game was an absolute classic, and I love that game, the original arcade game. So I hope that answers your question. Michael Quintero says, great idea, Mike. Okay, well, okay, so people are seeming to like this. So. Q&A with Mike. The motherfucking Q&A. That's pretty good.